Hi, I'm Maren and welcome back to my channel, Maren Makes It. Today I'm here to share with you a special project that I did, and that was to paint a mural on the stairs of the basement to the house that I grew up in. Over the last year, I've had a lot of friends buy houses or move, and redecorating is always one of the funnest parts of that process, in my opinion. So I thought this would be a relevant video to a lot of people, as I know this has been a trend over the last few years of people moving. This is the mural that I painted. It was a sort of under the sea theme. I'm going to talk about, what I would have done differently and a few tips if you were to attempt painting something like this yourself. So my first tip is to get permission from whoever's wall that you're painting on. So if you're in a rental, you definitely want to talk to the landlord about this first. If you're painting this at somebody else's house, you definitely want to discuss the design with them. I'm lucky because this was in the staircase to the basement of my house, and my mom pretty much gave me free reign with this. So I had a lot of flexibility here, but definitely making sure that you and whoever's house this is are on the same page about what you're about to do is really important. Sketching out on paper for them what you're thinking of doing can be really helpful here, just to make sure that you guys are on the same page as to what you're about to do. Tip number 2 is to stick with what you're good at drawing. So this is probably not the time to experiment with the first time I'm drawing a human's face or something. Stick to things that you already know how to draw and that you're good drawing. So I love drawing sunsets, I love drawing the ocean, I love drawing whales and dolphins. I've been doodling them since I was a kid. So for me, this was kind of a natural choice. It already is going to take you a long time to do this, and you don't really want to be learning how to draw the thing that you're drawing as you go. This is really not the time for that. Tip number 3 is to make sure you have the right materials, and most importantly, enough of them before you start. This is a big project. You're gonna need a lot more paint and materials than you normally do. You might need bigger paintbrushes than you have at your house, and you don't really wanna be worrying about running out of paint as you go. At the same time, you also don't wanna be feeling like you have to skimp on materials the whole time. This can really take you out of the kind of creative, artistic flow that you're in and make this project kind of unnecessarily stressful. Tip number 4 is to assume that this is going to take way longer than you think it will. Way longer. I started this over Christmas break and I thought, this will be a fun afternoon project for me. I'm pretty sure I ended up spending probably 24 to 30 hours of actually working on it that Christmas break. It became my Christmas break, which I'm not complaining because I really had a lot of fun doing it, but definitely plan for 5 times more time than you think it might take you. Tip number 5 kind of goes along with tip number 4, and that is to start with the background and then add in more detail. So in my case, that meant starting out with the ocean and the kind of the waves, as well as the sunset. This way, if you have to bail early on the project for any reason, it doesn't look like you have a half-complete project there. It's just you did the background and there's just not a lot of detail going on. Tip number 6 is to take breaks, especially for your neck and your arms, which are going to be in really weird positions when you're working on a wall. It is very important that you take a break to stretch out your neck, stretch out your back. If this is going to be a multi-day project for you, you're going to get really stiff and uncomfortable when you're sort of laying on the floor painting and kind of contorting yourself into positions. Taking those short breaks to rest and to recharge with a snack and to just stretch out your neck is totally worth it. This kind of project is definitely a marathon and not a sprint, so taking those breaks to stretch out, have a snack, go drink some water is definitely worth it. I know as artists you can kind of get into the creative zone and you're just kind of going for hours without stopping to do any of this. At least that's how I get. But you do definitely pay the price the next day when your neck is really stiff and now you have to keep working on this thing and you're really physically uncomfortable the whole time. Tip number 7 is to measure things out. So I know as artists, we sometimes like to eyeball things where we're sketching out a line or something. And that might work on paper, but when you're working on such a big scale, if this is not something you're used to, it's really helpful to actually take the time to measure things out. So for me, the biggest one of this was the horizon. I really wanted to make sure I got this straight. And when you're really up close to the wall, it's really hard to actually judge this for yourself. So this is a time where it's worth it to just, get a long measuring stick and then actually do the measuring out. You can mark out some of these reference measures that you measure out with a pencil so that you have these references for when you're working later on. Tip number 8 is to step back and take a look at your work every now and again. It's really easy when you're working on like one section, you're kind of like so zoomed up on that one section that you lose sight of the bigger picture and how that section kind of fits into things. Taking a few moments just to step back occasionally is definitely something that's worth it. In the end, it's usually easier to step back and double check things as you go as opposed to try to fix things later on. Working on such a large scale is very different than working on a piece of paper or something where you can see the entire frame of your work at once. Like if I have a paper, I can always see all of the paper at once. But when you're working on such a big canvas, you don't have this perspective. This was even hard, honestly, in a staircase because you can't really step very far back from what you're working on. With like a regular wall that's not a staircase, you can stand more than like 3 feet back from it. So you would even be able to do this much better. Number 9 is consider having a friend help you with this project. So I know it can be kind of hard to ask for help, but this is a big project, so consider your limits in terms of your time constraints and also your physical constraints. If your friend is not an artist, they can still help you with this project. So you can have your friend fill in the sky or fill in the ocean or kind of fill in an area that's more of a solid color. This way you can get some help just covering more surface area faster and focus on the detailed parts, and the project can get done a little faster. Plus, this is a great way to honestly bond with a friend and have some time to talk to them over an activity that is different than what you normally do. In the end, I'll say that it was definitely worth it to do this giant project. It is still something that warms my heart every time I look at pictures of it, and the sense of satisfaction you get from completing something like this is honestly amazing. I think working on such a big scale was a great challenge for me and something that I would definitely be interested in doing again in the future. However, I do think these tips would be things I'd keep in mind so that it would feel a little bit less like you're sprinting and then like you run out of steam and then you still have to do the rest of the wall, which is a little bit how I felt at the time. Instead, I would approach this more like a marathon, like you're going for the long haul and you know it will take a while. However, it is really cool to cover a wall with your work, and it does create something that's really special and that only you will have in your house, which I think is also something really cool. So if you've ever wondered how you'd approach a big painting project like this, then be sure to hit the like button down below. Also, subscribe to my channel for more creative content coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. Bye, YouTube.